Okay folks, MBS here. Today I'm going to be talking specifically about the EOIC method of setting up your camshaft so that you can do your tappets. Now this method has been around ever since the Otto cycle was invented. Yeah? This is the method they would have used. And we're still using it today. Even doing V8 engines, guys are using this method. Alright? A little bit long and cumbersome, but it gets the job done. What is it exactly? What are you doing exactly? You know what the letters stand for, yeah? The EOIC, exhaust just opening, inlet closed, just closing, or just shut. And you set the opposite tappet under those circumstances. So we're going to have a close look at it. I have covered this in minor detail before, but we're going to get into a bit deeper this time. And we're going to have a look at what is actually happening with the camshaft and lifter and valves during this procedure. So we've got a one cylinder engine, let's say, because I say this setting is good, or this system is good for setting 1, 2, 3, 5 cylinder engines, any odd number where you haven't got two pistons at the top at the same time, whereas the other three methods deal with the piston being at top dead center or valves overlapping and all that sort of stuff. I've covered that in other videos, which I'll show you at the end of this video. We'll have a link to the other methods. However, in this method, using it from day dot, you can't see the camshaft, alright? So we've got this one cylinder lawnmower. We can't see the camshaft, we can only see the valves, so we're going to have to see what they're doing. So let's put the camshaft in a random spot, anywhere. Let's just pick a spot, okay. That'll do. Oh, well, okay. We're on top dead center. Compression on this motor, so it's just fired the spark plug, yeah? Alright, so we rotate the engine, and we keep looking, and here we go, exhaust opening. Well, that's the first part of our equation, exhaust opening. Alright, there you have it. There's our first setting. Where's the inlet load? Right down the bottom. Okay, cool. We can set the tappets on the inlet valve, yeah? Can you see that? Opposite the nose. Most people say you've got to adjust the tappets opposite the nose. That's called the base circle. Everywhere from that 180-degree portion away from the lobe is the base circle. In this example, using the EOIC method, we always end up with the tappet virtually opposite the nose in every case, and you'll see that in a minute when we do the next one. Alright, so we've got the exhaust open, we're going to set the inlet. Okay, so we've done that, we've run a feeler gauge through, we've set that. Now we just turn the engine over and watch the next valve motion. What do we want here? We want IC, inlet closed. So we're a little bit away from that. We've got to bring that right around to here to close the inlet. So we're going to keep going. Exhaust has finished. Piston's coming up the top dead center. Inlet valve is starting to open. That's called the overlap. And we continue going. We see the inlet valve open. And then we're now watching the inlet valve close. Okay, when we get to that point, the valve is pretty close to being closed. The exhaust lobe is down the bottom, so we're going to set the exhaust valve, yeah? How easy is that? Alright, that cylinder is done. All you've got to do now is go to the next cylinder and start again. Watch what the valves are doing. Alright, so that's the EOIC. What about ICEO? That's just a mix around of the letters, yeah? I prefer the ICEO, actually. I'll tell you why. Did you see how far I had to turn that over from this position to this position? What if we started at this position? Yeah? The second half of the equation, IC. That's why I call it the ICEO, personally. Because I'll start here. I'll set the exhaust valve, and then I only have to turn it just that little bit more, and I'll set the inlet. A little bit easier, isn't it, that way? But in your circumstance, you may end up in this position when you start, and then as you're turning the engine over, you'll go, oh, whoa, the inlet is shutting. Oh, I may as well set the exhaust while I'm here, yeah? So it doesn't matter, it's just a mismatch of the letters. You can start IC and end with EO, or start with EO and end with IC. Doesn't matter, it's the same difference, same result at the end, yeah? Okay, so that's what's happening inside your engine, or that particular cylinder that you're setting the tappets on. And now you can see what the camshaft is doing, and you can work out all the 4 strokes too, using this diagram of what's happening with your camshaft and valve motion during the 4-stroke engine. So yeah, so that works out pretty well for us when we're doing a small amount of cylinders. Okay, as I said, 1, 2, 3 or 5 cylinder engines. I've used this method 3 times in my life. Once on my own car, a 3-cylinder Alto. There's no other method I could have used. I had to use the EOIC or ICEO, so I did. And I was shown once before I became an apprentice, and I was shown once during my apprenticeship. And I've never used them again, all right? I got those in the wrong order of describing them. I actually did the Alto third, so I did pre-apprentice, apprenticeship, and then I did my Alto, all right? So I know how it works, so no problems. It served me well to do the Alto. Otherwise, I don't know, I would have got around it. I would have found another way to do it, but I could have just followed the rotor button, yeah? Okay. Anyway, that's how handy and versatile the EOIC is. It works on any engine. You can do a diesel with it if you wanted to, if you had some way of turning that engine over easily, because there is a lot of turning of the engine with this method. Yeah, you've got to understand that. You're going to be turning the engine a lot of times. But hey, you guys know it, you've used it. I thought I'd just make this video to explain or show you where the camshaft actually is, because it's easy to tell someone, do this, do that, okay? When it does this, do that. When it does that, do this. But in your head you go, I wonder what I'm doing. I know that if I do that, I can set my tappet, yeah? But now I've shown you where the camshaft is to give you a better understanding of where the tappet is actually sitting on the camshaft, so you can do your tappets. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you. It's always good having a little diagram like that to show you exactly what's going on inside the engine. So yeah, so when you're doing your lawnmower, all those small number of cylinders, you've got to use the EOIC. Yeah, it's easy, probably one of the easiest ways. All right, oldie but a goodie. Yeah, there are more methods, and they're going to pop up shortly now for you to have a look at if you want to. And I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you in another video.